I'd like to take you through the top of the table clash between Fabiano Caruana and Alireza Firouzja. So Caruana leading the tournament. Yeah, he's been playing really well. No huge drama. He had problems against Anand, but managed to pull through. And basically, he's on really good form. Played d4 today. Normally, of course, we see Fabi playing e4. That's generally his favourite move. So this was obviously something specially prepared for Firouzja, who's played his old love, the King's Indian. And Caruana plays h3. Well, this is a variation that I featured before on this channel. I like it very much. White plays in an ambitious way, often trying to close Black's kingside play down with g4. And in this position, Firouzja played knight c6. Now this is, excuse me, an unusual move. And Caruana admitted afterwards that he was really unfamiliar with these positions. It's highly provocative because whites can just push, and this is what happened. So Caruana pushed his pawns forward, went all the way with g4, which looks terribly impressive, but white takes on huge responsibility when playing like this. Thing is, if it goes wrong, then behind those pawns there are huge weaknesses. So let me show you what I mean in a second. So here b6, that's a good move. This bishop needs to come out. Knight d4, aiming for that square. Knight c5 attacks this pawn. Now, what happens if white plays a really seemingly natural move, bishop g2, to defend that pawn? Well, then bishop a6. And you can see that bishop slices across the king. Knight d3 check, already threatened. And basically you can see how behind those pawns there are now huge weaknesses. This is the danger. And the knight hopping into c6, well, that's what we would like, but actually it doesn't make any difference. Black just plays around that knight, and it's even a chance to undermine it with e6. So already white has to step very, very carefully here. So queen f3 guards the pawn. e6 is interesting here actually, but bishop b7 played. This is tricky. Caruana said afterwards that he didn't want to play castle's queen side, which, well, you might like to tuck your king away. He said he felt that after e6, Black had a very dangerous initiative. Instead, he thought it was best to force the issue with g5. And this is a make or break move, because if that knight retreats or comes to h5, then it takes pressure away from e4. And white can hold the centre and should have a decent position. So really, Black's only chance here is to keep pressing on and to give up a piece. So let's see what happens. Bishop d5, threatening the knight, and there's a nasty pin. So this is forced. And let me take. So white is a piece up, but Black has lots of play here. That pin. If king f2, for example, then things just turn Black's way. This is absolutely terrible. I mean, what an initiative Black has here. And so on. I mean, this would be such a nasty way to play. Oh, the queen is in. It looks absolutely terrible for white. Let's go back. So Caruana had basically calculated this before, and he dropped the knight back. And he said he thought this variation was more or less forced, actually. So he's brought his king to relative safety on this side of the board. But in the meantime, Black has taken lots of pawns. Here you've got to be careful. If bishop takes, then queen f6, and this is nasty. White is just in the firing line here. You can see everything is going black's way here, and this is just going to be too much. So after this move, g takes f4, bishop d4 was played by Caruana. That's absolutely essential to shut out this bishop. So bishops exchanged, and knight e6. And now this will be a dream for black if white were to take this pawn. Because after this, queen is on this great diagonal. These lines are open. The rooks come into play. And suddenly you can see that black actually has a huge lead in development. You know, these pieces aren't in play, basically. It's too late. So after knight e6, Caruana just dropped the queen straight away. So now if we do a material count, you can see that black has 4 pawns for a bishop. 4 pawns. Normally that should be enough. But actually in this position, I have to say that I like white's position. And the problem is that it's very hard to advance these pawns because that is going to expose black's king. And in the meantime, these pieces have the chance to try and settle on some very good squares. Now, I was expecting here h4, with potentially the idea to break up pawns here, break open the h-file, but actually simply to give the bishop some room and then to bring the rook into play and try and get pressure on this pawn actually. So I thought that's a reasonable move. Bishop g2 also comes into consideration, but bishop b5 played by Caruana. And then knight b4. And actually this bishop is very annoying for black. Has some very interesting possibilities sometimes to come to c6. d5. Still don't want to take that pawn. That just opens up all the lines, and then rook takes, and a familiar tactic, rook c1 check, and take the queen. So we don't take that, but instead rook f1 with a little bit of pressure here. And now here was a great decision by Caruana. He kept his bishop there. He just protected it with a4, and at first glance you think that looks a bit strange. The a pawn, you know, has it gone too far? Does that weaken white's king? In fact, it's a very useful move. It gives the king an escape square. It's actually very hard to attack that pawn, and it's simply very strong to maintain that bishop on b5. So d4 played, and now knight d3. This is such a superb knight on d3. Really, really strong blockader. And yeah, as well as blocking that pawn on d4, which in turn shuts out, if that pawn remains on d4, shuts out all black's pieces. That knight looks at the f4 pawn, and the rook had to come to f5, and it looks rather ungainly to split the rooks in this way. Yep, you can tick that off on your charts, one of my favourites. I mean, it looks nice for white to play the bishop here to e4 just to get rid of that rook and take on f4. But actually bishop c6 runs into knight c5. Looking at that bishop there. So instead of that, rook f3 played, blockading that pawn. And sooner or later, you know, white is going to build up pressure here. So g5 played, but I mean, maybe this move is inevitable, but it does mean that black's king comes under fire. Maybe you have to play h5 here to stop white's next move. And the computers think that black is okay here, but actually I think it's much easier for white to play this position than black. just because, as I said, when these pawns advance, which at some point you have to, then black's king becomes exposed. And I just think that white's pieces, you know, particularly that beautiful blockader on d3, white's pieces are so well coordinated here compared to black. In any case, after rook g1, Firouzja played king f8, stepping out of the g-file, understandably. But then h4, this is the reason I think h5 had to be played. Because with the pawn on h5, of course, h4 could be met by g4. So in this position, after h4, of course, that would just break up black's pawns. Black has to protect that, but after the exchange, then white starts to take control here and can start to hassle black on the h-file. It's very dangerous. Here, Firouzja played f3. It's very interesting, actually. This might be a good practical try to actually give up a rook and to play like this. Because after that, then white's king is just a little bit insecure. Even though white is a rook up. Now, white should be winning that position, but it's still a bit tricky, actually. Anyway, f3 played. Bishop c4, once that knight goes, then black's pawns look more vulnerable. And bishop takes. If pawn takes, then rook h7, that rook doing a good job, and suddenly black's king in mortal danger. So king takes, but it also doesn't look great. And after queen h2, I think white, well, in practical terms, should be winning this position because black's king is just too exposed. f2 played, and that's before, you know, rook e1 check comes. So that just buys black a little bit of time, but of course it means this pawn has dropped. Yes, it prevents this, but now the pawn is loose. And white still really well coordinated. As long as the queens stay on the board, I think that's the key thing in this position, then black is in trouble. With the queens off the board, then it would be possible to try and push those kingside pawns. With the queens on the board, then white's attack is incredibly strong. And now here's a beautiful move. Pawn to a5. So just when the king thinks it might be able to find a haven on the other side of the board, a5 rips open the position and black is utterly lost here. So well, first of all, this is a threat. a6 is also comes into consideration as well, but let's look at rook d6. Well, white has a winning attack here. And here's a beautiful move. a6, dragging that king up the board, and rook h8. Wonderful move. Means the king can't return here because of queen c8 mate. And otherwise white's attack is breaking through. So for example, here, and the king is about to be cut to shreds here, unsurprisingly, and so on. It really is absolutely brutal. Well, shall we just finish it off? For example, king here, check, and knight d3. I think is checkmate. Yes, just a sample variation, but just gives you a flavour of what's going on. So Firouzja took the pawn. And now white has options to attack down here, but also here as well. Check. And now the knight enters. Let's just see what happens if, well, black played rook d6 here. Let's just have a look at g4. Queen h2 check is a beautiful slicing move from the side. And after this, Queen G2, and the queen gets in and mate next move. Great stuff. Beautifully played by Caruana, I have to say. So knight c5 was the last move, and then rook d6. And a check. So the king can't step here, that would be fatal. So rook here, and now the queen enters the game. And this is the end here. Black resigned. If king e6, so you've got to keep hold of the queen. King e6, knight takes. And we can come in here and take a rook. Now white is a rook up, and that will be mate very shortly. Beautiful game by Caruana. He really kept his head after a very difficult opening. He admitted that he felt very uncomfortable. He wasn't really familiar with the position, but he found his way through very rationally, actually. Really liked the way he played. So that means that after 10 rounds, Fabiano Caruana is in the sole lead with 7 out of 10. In second position, Carlsen with 6.5, Wesley So and Van Forest on 6 points. Yeah, that's right. With 3 rounds to go, I think Fabiano has an excellent chance of winning. Not just because he's half a point ahead, but he has a slightly easier run-in than Carlsen. Carlsen has yet to play Wesley So, and I think that'll be a tricky one for him. And, well, the live rating list shows how Caruana is on excellent form. His live rating is now 28.30. He is gaining points in this tournament. Still a fair bit to catch up on Magnus, but still 28.30 is a very serious rating. Thanks for watching.